Cool. So Keith, tell me a little bit about, I know that you want to get a little bit into the business planning side of things, but what else would be important for you to talk about this morning?
I don't know if I mentioned in a little bit in the message I sent to you over workplace. I'm not too happy with my current mentor, and I know I would be interested in switching to you if you'd be willing to take me on. I don't know what that looks like for you if you're able to do that, but I just think it makes a lot more sense since I see you a lot more often anyway than I do my own mentor.
Sure.
And just to be honest, it doesn't seem like he really cares or even wants to be a mentor. Like he doesn't reach out to me at all. It's all on me to reach out to him and interact with him. And it honestly just seems like he's super busy and doesn't really want to deal with me.
Okay. No worries, man. So we'll definitely dive into some of that stuff. I'll share with you kind of how I leverage the mentor program and like try to carve out time so that people know how to find me. And then it's completely up to you if that sounds like it would make sense for you. Now, I know that you also have another full-time focus, right? And tell me a little bit about what that schedule looks like and what you do.
Well, I'm an assistant manager for Smart and Final.
Gotcha.
I've been with the company for 10 years now this month. My schedule is all over the place, especially right now during the holidays. It's a busy time for us, and we are extremely short-staffed,
Mm,
as most people are. So I've been very transparent with my bosses, though, throughout the whole time of getting my real estate license and telling them that that's the direction that I want to go in. Because for the majority of my time with the company, I dedicated myself to them. I told them I wanted to move up, wanted to get to store manager because I knew I was capable of doing it because the grocery business is pretty easy, and when you're a hard worker and smart person in that industry, you stand out. And so I used that tactic. I just outworked everyone to get to where I am now. I'm 29 now. I'm getting married next year, and I want to start a family. So,
congratulations.
yeah, thank you. So I can't wait for things to happen. I kind of got to go make it happen on my own. I'm pretty much trying to cut down my responsibility and time there so that I can focus more on real estate. Because for me, like I've been trying to tell my boss, it just doesn't make sense for me to limit myself in a job where my income is stuck at a certain point, and my position right now, I can't make any more money
Mm.
because I'm tapped out, and there's no incentive for me to try any harder to give them any more effort. And why would I do that when I can go put in the effort I've been putting into Smart and Final these past 10 years into real estate, and my income is limitless based on how hard I work. Um,
Absolutely.
and that's kind of, I've talked to a lot of realtors that have dealt with people in part-time situations like me, and they've all pretty much kind of told me the same thing, that at some point I'm going to need to take like a leap of faith into myself and just trust that I'll be able to do that. And I'm kind of seeing that point now.
So as far as like the number of hours that you work as the assistant manager, what is that averaging out to? I know like it's probably a little extreme right now given the holidays, but what is it normally?
Anywhere from 40 to 50.
Okay. And if you were to step down, what would that look like in terms of number of hours?
I would probably still be full time, but I would have the ability to work the hours that I would want to work.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So you would be able to kind of limit it at 40
Yeah,
and then you would have a little bit more say as far as what hours you're actually there. Okay, interesting.
yeah.
Um, and in general, how severe is the pay cut as far as the change in role? Is it pretty dramatic?
No, and that's the reason why I'm not. I don't think it's too big of a deal if I'm not mistaken, because there's many ways that they can go about it. They can, if they're really nice to me and they want to take care of me, they can bump me down to a different department
Hmm.
that still has a somewhat of an equal pay type. Just for an example, it's another reason why I really don't want to work for this company much anymore, is that the difference between an assistant manager and a produce manager is 25 cents.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So they could bump me down to that, and I can essentially only be making 25 cents less. Or if they really don't like me, they can bump me all the way down to uh, a full-time person in charge, and I think that would be around like a $2 pay
Wow.
cut.
See, that's pretty significant. And um you are the best person to know the politics there and how to navigate those changes. You
Yeah.
know, I get it. When I started in my real estate career, Keith, I was 24 years old.
Hmm.
I didn't have a family. I didn't have much responsibility. I was in a position to burn the ships and
Yeah.
make some very selfish choices. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but I didn't have others to consider. It was just me.
Yeah.
Um, I will say that when I really made a transition in my real estate career, not only was I married and had a mortgage, but I also was having my first child.
Hmm.
And so I understand a little bit of both, and I don't think that it's necessary to jump off the diving board into the deep end and just, you know, to heck with all responsibility. There is a way for you to make this transition. My focus for everyone is when they're coming away from a full-time job or other career and transitioning to real estate, we need to build your real estate so that it's not affordable for you to show up to that other career anymore.
Hmm.
That's when it's the right time. Now, it may take a little bit longer for that reason.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to be very strategic about the hours that are allotted to you to do real estate. They
Hmm.
have to be very income producing hours. Okay. So,
Hmm.
but those are all things that we can figure out. And those are all things that are very easy to track and monitor.
Hmm.
So, yes, there's going to be a little bit more of a duration of time for you to make that transition, most likely. But I would rather that for you than you putting yourself in a financial pinch, especially with, the wedding coming up and the whole nine yards. So let's
Yeah.
kind of focus on some of those things. Now, addressing the mentor program, let me share with you a little bit about how I do it. So you've seen some of my 0 to 6 figures program now, right?
Yeah.
I'm restarting that program live in January. And when I do that, you will get the newer version of those trainings live. And
Hmm.
I do office hours once a week where anyone can come with any questions that they have and ask. I know that that may be great for you, but I also recognize that you may not be available when those office hours are.
Hmm.
So I definitely can, carve out some additional time, but I try my best to make it so that I can be very consistent in terms of my availability, and that's why I carve out hours.
Hmm.
Um, to be fair to the other mentor, I get it. It is a challenge to focus on the growth of your own business and have to turn it, but you have to be really cognizant, you have to be really organized, and you have to be really willing to adjust your calendar to facilitate, assisting others. And not
Yeah.
everyone has the willingness or the ability to do those things. So I don't know what those circumstances look like. Yes, I'd be happy to take you on as a mentee.
Hmm.
But I also just want to make sure I'm being very forthcoming with you that I do carve out certain hours,
Hmm.
and if they're outside of those hours, I'm not saying that don't call me. That's just not how I roll. But I just may not be as consistently available for you as I'd want to be. But I
Hmm.
think just in our dialogue with the open house and other conversations, I think you're getting a pretty good idea of what my responses look like in terms of pace, and
Yeah.
whatnot. Would your current engagement with me in other ways, is that would you call that sufficient without having those hours available to you?
Yeah, I think so. And
Okay.
for me, it's not just about the like the consistency. It's more, even more so, the comfortability that
Hmm.
I have with you. And it's just, I think it's just your personality and what you give off. You're just very easy person to talk to, and you just give off that mentor vibe, I guess,
Thanks.
that he really doesn't give off to me. So, but yeah, it's mainly that level of comfortability. I think that a lot of people connect with you on that.
Well, I appreciate that, Keith. Thank you for saying that, man. It's very kind of you. Yes, happy to be your mentor. I'm honored. And yeah, I'm glad that you feel that way. I definitely do sincerely care and want to help other people grow. So if you and I can work closely together and that's going to be a benefit to you, I'm in. So by all means, all you would do is let the mentorship program know that you'd like to make a transition and they would start to coordinate the process from there. Now, let's dive into your business planning. Tell me where you're at. Tell me how it's going. Tell me where maybe there's places you're stuck and what I can help with.
Well, I completed it to the best of my ability, being a brand new agent and not having any past experience or numbers to go off of.
Okay.
So, I think that my income goal was I just made it a clean 100,000
Awesome. Okay.
because that would be pretty life changing for me. And then I think the only other part I got stuck on was the expenses because I know you kind of gave a like a general uh, percentage of what to expect from each of those categories, but I just wasn't too sure what that number should look like in terms of expenses.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so, couple of things. So, number one, with like figuring out your numbers and drilling down a little bit, were
Mhm.
the examples and some of the more details that were offered in the program, did they help you to move through that part of the process despite being new and not having any previous numbers to track?
Yeah, I think it was pretty simple to just plug in the numbers and based it off of the. I mean, I think I gave a pretty low purchase price when I ran the numbers just to be a little bit favorable, just because I knew that my commissions aren't going to be as high with these first three.
Mhm.
And so I made that number a little bit lower just to help accommodate that. But still, even at 100,000, it's only 9 transactions. So,
Beautiful. When you see that nine total deals,
hmm
because when you look at the number, like you said, 100,000, that's a great income that would make some big changes for you.
hmm
But you see just nine deals to accomplish that. How do you feel about that number?
and I feel like it's definitely achievable for me, if
Awesome.
not more.
Beautiful, man. I'm glad. I'm glad to hear that. It's important for me to get a gauge on someone's emotional connection to their goal and to
hmm
the lead measures leading to that lag measure. Because if the lead measure is really cumbersome, it's emotionally making you want to retract, then we need to do some work there. But if that feels really available to you, man, that's a really healthy place to start. So I'm glad to hear that. Now, expenses. Expenses are all over the place. And the reason that I say that is because it is every single agent is their own entity in business. And
hmm
so the way that you decide to approach real estate can dramatically alter what the business expenses look like. Okay.
Okay.
I will share with you in my program, be it that it is designed for a newer agent, someone who's brand new or been in the business just a few years and is trying to penetrate that six-figure mark. The way that I've approached the business for myself and the way that I built that program was to have a very highly profitable real estate business with very low upfront expenses.
hmm
Okay, so that's where you're going to see, instead of throwing money at things like leads, we're really going to get out there and put in the work and the effort.
Yeah.
So we can kind of talk through some expenses in a lot of granular detail, but just know out of the gate, I'm trying to focus on approaching this with you so that you don't have a ton of out-of-pocket expense to start. Okay. But it is going to mean more time invested to grow without throwing money at leads.
Yeah.
So, um, you are part of a realtor board already, correct?
Yeah.
Which board are you a part of?
Ivar, Inland Valley
Perfect.
Association. Yeah.
I would imagine it's anywhere from about 1,200 to $1,300 a year in that range.
Yeah. Yeah. About right around there.
Okay. And then I'm assuming that you do pay for your super lockbox access.
Yes.
And yeah, that's like a $17 a month charge. Is that right?
16, yeah, 16, 17, something around
Perfect.
there.
Okay. So we're looking at about $1,500 there. as far as running your business goes, what other costs are you incurring right now?
I haven't been paying for any lead generation. I haven't really got into that part yet because
Hmm.
that was one of the things that my current mentor he advised me to stay away from, at least in the beginning, until I got some income to help uh, throw out that a little more without touching my own personal income from my other job right now.
Sure.
But um, as far
I,
as that,
I
it's
I
not.
echo those words, by the way.
Yeah,
Let's kind of dive in really briefly why that matters so much. Obviously, you know, you want to have a business that can invest in itself.
yeah,
And, the reason why maybe going after lead acquisition where you're paying up front may be a difficult overhaul is because there's a skill set and a follow-up sequence that you need to really build out so that you can have success with those leads.
yeah.
Otherwise, you're spending money on something that's not going to produce results for you.
Hmm.
So I fully agree with that, and it's not necessary. The way that James Cottrell and I look at lead generation is this: it's like, do you have more time or do you have more money? Because if you have more time than money, then that's when you are really going to go after some of the more um, proactive client acquisition strategies. You getting out there in the world and hustling to get in front of more people. Now,
Hmm.
if you have more money than time, which could shift in your business, right? You're doing a
Hmm.
bunch of deals. You don't have time to work every single buyer, and you can start to be a little more selective in who you're working with or just allocating your time. That's when maybe some lead acquisition strategies that are more reactive, more marketing driven,
Hmm.
could help supplement your business and keep that growth pattern going because you're kind of tapped out in your hours. So
Yeah.
we'll talk through the scale of all of those things as your career progresses. And then the beauty is, as you know, here with us, I'm not your only coach. I'm one of, 21.
Yeah.
So as you start to scale in your business, going from, you know, starting out part-time to becoming a full-time agent, and then as you start to really grow in your production, we're going to have other coaches that'll help you do a few things. One of them is scale. The other is really help you start to niche down in certain areas that you really want to be the expert in. So we'll
Hmm.
help you along that path as well. But this is definitely the right start for us.
Hmm.
Um, Outside of really like the dues that you have to maintain good standing with the board of realtors and all, I don't see any other big expensive items at this moment, at least not for us to do what we want to do to get you productive. At some point, I think some of the next investments that you're going to want to make in your business are going to be around signage, open house
Yeah.
signage that is yours that you can go and deploy at, whenever you need to. Listing signs, which is going to be later on, obviously, and then
Hmm.
just more branding awareness type of materials. So
Okay.
signage, additional business cards if necessary, folders, but everything is going to be more around brand awareness. When we think about your business plan or when you look at what some of the client acquisition strategies are, some of the pillars, what
Hmm.
are the things that you selected?
Well, of course, number one, proactive was sphere of influence.
Awesome.
Then number two, I use uh, pretty much my other job because that's what I try to do is have conversations with people at my other job. I know to be doing two things at the same time, but as I can because I've been at this particular store for people. I've built so many relationships with customers, employees that I know that once I get that out there to all the people that I know that's probably going to be my main source of leads is through my first job just because how long I've been there and all the
Sure.
relationships that I've built over these last 10 years. That I already have um, one client that as soon as I got my license, he told me that we were going to work together. He didn't need to hear anything from me. He knew what I was about because we worked together for so long. We sat down and went over we did a little consultation and figured out what he wanted to do, and he's holding off until the beginning of the year, but him and his son are getting ready to get themselves into position so they can start working with me and going after a home.
Beautiful. Nice work, man. Congratulations. That's perfect. Okay, um so store customers. Awesome. I love that. What's number 3 for you on that list?
Open houses.
All right, great. Was that was your first open house that you did with Mandy?
Correct, yeah.
Perfect. And how did that feel as far as, something that you would go out there and do on your own?
I feel like it would be pretty easy, and I liked that first time doing it with Mandy, just because a little bit of a insight to myself. Because on the disc assessment, I'm a what's it S I think SC.
Okay.
I'm very usually, if you can't tell, I'm a pretty quiet and reserved person, especially when there's a lot of people in the room. I'm just one of those people that kind of observes everything
Mm-hmm.
and takes as much information as I can before I start to deploy my own strategies and tactics. Like I know it's difficult, especially as a realtor, because you're supposed to be going and engaging and talking with people. But I think I excel more in the one-on-one situations, talking with people, and I have a little bit less confidence when there's a lot of people around me. And but I think I really excel in that one-on-one environment and
Perfect.
connecting with people like that.
This is the same reason why you didn't put networking events down as one of your lead, and that's great. You know how
Yeah.
many people make that error? They don't really think about their own past experiences, who
Mhm.
they naturally are, as far as personality, or the skill sets that they've developed. Can't even talk anymore. Over like their previous career, schooling, you name it. You
Yeah.
want to consider those things because they're important. Why wouldn't you do something that you're going to naturally have more success with or gravitate towards? So that's
Yeah.
perfect. Open houses. I love it. Um, and we're going to come back to your client before we're done today. Awesome. So those are the proactive. Tell me about reactive.
Number one, I put social media, and then number two, I put mailers and flyers.
Okay.
Three was drip campaigns through KV Core.
Perfect. Okay. And who are those drip campaigns going to go to?
My sphere of influence.
Okay. So SOI. All right. Here's what I would say, especially because we are being a little cognizant of costs. Social media, perfect. I think that is exactly where you'd want to be. Remember, building a brand, and I want you to think of brand is just you. Okay. I want people to have awareness of you.
Hmm.
Building brand is going to be such an instrumental thing to do for you early on. And because of the technologies available to us now, if you build brand the right way, it is essentially creating an ecosystem that can live forever. And
Hmm.
when people get in close proximity to you on social, they can get exposure to, this ecosystem that's existed for years. And it does
Hmm.
a bunch of things for you, like build credibility, um, have them see you on your journey. But, it's not something that you can develop tomorrow, but it's something you need to start right now or it'll never be there. Okay. So social media is perfect. And I'm assuming this is going to be just unpaid posting to your social, right? Do you
Yeah.
have a strategy around that approach?
The social media
Yeah.
approach.
Hmm.
Not really too much. I mean, I'm really just getting back into the social media side. Before I got my real estate license, I went away from all social media because I believed it was a huge distraction to me.
Hmm.
Personally, with just the whole mindless scrolling things
Sure.
that we all tend to do sometimes, and I realized how much time I was wasting doing that, and I couldn't stand it, so I took it out of my phone just to avoid it altogether. But now I know it's not something I can get away with in being a realtor now, especially if I want to be a successful one and grow my business as much as possible. So it's a difficult thing for me to try and get used to because, like I said, I'm not a huge social person, but I am about helping people as much as possible, which is the whole reason why I became a realtor.
Yep.
My own experience with my realtor that helped me buy this house, and just the ability to help people and realizing how many questions I was being asked on a daily basis from my coworkers and friends and family just from my own experience with buying my house. And That's right. That really got me down the path to getting my license.
So a couple things I want you to recognize. You already have everything you need to build content that's
Hmm.
going to attract the people that you want to work with. And it's what you just said. You hear so many questions that you're being asked from coworkers, other friends, family, you name it.
Hmm.
Even though they may seem like simple questions to you that you can either answer immediately, or they're simple questions that might take more research, but you know the answer, you just need to pull the data together.
Hmm.
Try to take those questions down mentally or written down
Hmm.
in the language they were asked of you. Meaning, if I were to say to you, Keith, because I'm in the business, like, what's the relationship of interest rates to home prices or home values, right?
Hmm.
That's someone on the inside who understands, the lingo and whatnot.
Hmm.
But someone may ask you, well, because rates were really high, did prices drop? When you do a social media post, even better video, okay,
Hmm.
you're going to want to ask the question the way that they asked it of you, because it'll resonate with people outside, and then you're going to simply answer it. So those are some of the best ways to start to engage your social media, is by answering the questions that people are asking you anyway, but just taking those same questions and putting it on social for everyone else to listen to. That's
Okay.
going to do a bunch of things, like really position you as the expert as well. And people start to get really familiar and comfortable with your speech pattern, your personality, and they will either really be attracted to that or they're
Hmm.
not. You want both. Okay.
Yeah.
You really do. You want both. You want people to find themselves out of your ecosystem because you guys don't work well together, or there's something about, the way that you approach things and the way they approach things that's not going to work. You
Hmm.
want that to naturally happen. And more importantly, you want to really hone in on exactly who is going to get a lot of value out of working with you and appreciate you, because those are the people who will come back for more and refer you. So that would be a really important strategy as far as your social media. That's just one of several. In my
Okay.
program, I have a bunch of other ways that I'm going to essentially force you into doing social
Hmm.
media. Okay. So that's perfect. That's a great one. Mailers and flyers. We want to be cognizant of your costs. And I'm not saying that that's a wrong strategy. We just may have to apply it differently if we're trying to either eliminate or minimize costs as much as possible. When you think about mailers and flyers, do you have a farm area or a geographic area that you had in mind?
I was thinking just primarily starting out in my neighborhood,
Perfect.
just area that I know the best, because I think it would be easiest for me to, and probably the most effective for me to just go hand them out, hand deliver them myself, and hopefully run into people if I can and talk to them in person. But if not, then just leave them in their mailboxes.
That's perfect. Okay, a couple things that let's talk about really quickly. So number one, you nailed it, because a lot of times when I hear mailers, I'm thinking a couple of things. One, um, you know, card stock, which is obviously professional print, which could cost money, and then postage. That's where you're going to run into cost to consider, because an effective mailing strategy or flyering strategy is about consistency. It
Hmm.
is not a quick to close approach, but it's also a very slow to lose momentum approach, right? Easy come, easy go, hard come, hard go. It's a similar idea there, but everything is driven around the consistency of those pieces going out. So my recommendation would be, and this is again, more time than money or more money than time, you can have a very similar strategy, but instead of mailing it, you may even start with printing your items yourself, right?
Yeah.
And going out and hand delivering them. Just note, the one thing you cannot do is you cannot put it in their mailbox.
Okay.
If you put it in a mailbox without postage, you're going to get in trouble for, essentially doing mail service without having postage.
Okay.
But it can go on front doors. It can definitely be hand delivered to people. I think a really great way to do like flyer dropping, you can even get these printed at home, or if you want to have a small cost for them, those flyers that are essentially door hangers, right?
Hmm.
And you can go and just put them on front doors. You can leave them right under mats. And the idea there would be you go when you can, but if you can go during a more likely time that people are out and about, you're going to naturally just have conversations with people who are, in front of their home, taking out their trash, walking their dog. I
Hmm.
try to do my door knocking, which is different than flyer dropping, right?
Hmm.
I try to do my door knocking around similar times. But the best time to door knock or flyer drop is whenever the heck you're going to consistently do it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Great. I'm glad you thought that through. So that's a great one for you as well. Drip campaigns. Now I'm going to share with you my opinion about the drip campaign to the database. I'm
Hmm.
going to call that back. I'm going to call that a part of your proactive number one.
Okay.
Okay. So what does that mean? That means I still think that we need one more um reactive lead generation strategy.
Okay.
Is there anything else that you thought of, saw that you maybe think could be a possible reactive lead gen strategy?
At the top of my head right now, I can't come up with anything.
Okay.
But
Let me give you a few. And they may not even be reactive, but we do need a sixth pillar.
hmm.
I love it. So the drip campaigns can still work, but if they're
Hmm.
going back to your database, that's just going to be part of your overall approach to your database. Okay. However, there are ways to have, um, let's say, like Facebook groups
Hmm.
that you could post into. James has a really good way of doing this where you can have almost like an advertising post, but you're not paying for it, but it's
Yeah.
going into different groups. What city do you live in, Keith?
In Riverside.
Perfect. Okay. So it could be like, I'm sure you've seen these on Facebook. You grew up in Riverside if, or
Yeah.
Riverside buy, sell, trade. Some of
Hmm.
those Facebook groups, you could have periodic posts. James has an entire methodology of doing this, including like getting the groups, having them on a spreadsheet, how frequently you should post into them. And this is something you can do daily, where it's going to take you maybe 30 minutes to an hour to just post into these different groups just to try and get exposure. So it's basically doing the same as a paid ad without paying for it.
Hmm.
Okay. That means you have to work a little bit more. That's all. So that's an opportunity as an example. Another one could be if you want to do like drip campaigns around, maybe a farming list that you get from a title company, for example. They may have to do some skip tracing to get some of the additional data that you need, like email addresses, but then you
Hmm.
can just simply put them on a drip campaign. That is not proactive because you're not out there calling them, for example, but it could
Hmm.
be reactive in the sense that if someone responds or appreciates the information or wants more, that would be a great lead opportunity. Okay. What do you think your comfort level would be with for sale by owners or expireds?
Yeah, I mean that was definitely something that I'd be willing and wanted to get into, but it's another thing I struggle with is I tend to over prepare and think I'm not prepared, and I know it's one of the things you preach is just stop trying to over prepare and just go out there and do it and figure it out as you go along. But that's just my personality. I'm a perfectionist when it comes down to everything, and I know that's something I need to try and be very just keep that in mind and when I'm going out and doing this business that everything doesn't have to be perfect right away.
So I'm going to guess that if I were to say, we're going to have you jump on the phone and open up uh, the phone book and just start cold calling people, that you would be mortified. Is that a fair assessment?
I don't think so. I think
Really?
I'm, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, talk to me about that.
Well, I mean, I have been in customer service for the past 10 years, so I'm very good, and I am a manager, so I've been yelled at quite a lot by customers
Okay,
for the past
perfect.
few
Good,
years.
good, good. Okay. All right. So a couple of things, and I want to share with you why I'm looking at our list and kind of going a completely different direction.
Hmm.
Sphere of influence, customers at the store that you've built relationships with, and really starting to maybe go into the dialogue of real estate.
Hmm.
Open houses. When I look at the first two, those are like a little bit business in the future. We don't know exactly when those people are going to want to transact. Okay. Which is not wrong or bad. Open houses, now that's an opportunity to potentially meet someone who's a little bit closer to the decision, our purchasing process.
Yeah.
Social media could be a longer term play, especially as we're talking about brand. Mailers and flyers, again, longer term play. And then when we look at maybe one more pillar on the reactive side, I'm in my mind thinking, how do we get more business now?
Hmm.
Opportunities for you. So that's why I asked about canceled expireds FISBOs. So a couple of things. If you find that you might be willing to jump on the phone and make some calls, those could be some really important opportunities there. And again, it's if you have the thick skin already and you understand that we're just playing a numbers game, that
Yeah.
could be a really great way for you to get some opportunities going immediately. Okay. The other thing that I was thinking about there is if you're already out doing like mailers and flyers, you could do like almost like a pre-listing packet
Hmm.
to an older expired listing. We know a lot of times when a home expires on the MLS, if they intend to sell again, they may wait for a solid 3 months. So this is where you start looking at expireds that aren't yesterday, right? They're 3 months ago, and you start to go and deliver a packet to the home and then maybe follow up with a phone call if possible or a door knock. Those are just opportunities that could be now instead of 6 months from now or a year from now, right? So
Yeah.
I would think through something there. And then if we want to get way more to the proactive side of it, if you think you're open to making some phone calls because you
Hmm.
have those skill sets in your background,
Hmm.
there's nothing wrong with having 4 proactive
Hmm.
and 2 really solid reactive, especially when we're thinking about you having very limited time to build your real estate production.
Yeah.
And this is what I meant. Like when you have real estate hours, and this is going to be such a brain scramble for you, you and I are going to make sure that you're actually doing the work instead of learning the work
Yeah.
because you don't have time to learn it in other than in real, like you're going to go through the school of hard knocks.
Yeah.
And then I would also agree that the reason why you've accelerated in your current career is because you were kind of forced into doing that anyway. You had to
Uh,
just go and work,
yeah.
right? You didn't get to learn and perfect and then you didn't go from like seeing the grocery business to being an assistant manager. I
Hmm.
think your personality would have wanted to do all that, learning, understanding, clarity, and then going right into that role.
Yeah.
You weren't afforded that. They threw you in and said, get to work.
Yeah.
And the truth is, and this is where it's tough because I tend to be like you in this way, you're never going to be perfect unless you start.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the perfectionist side of you is actually a tremendous benefit because it's going to force you to always want to learn and be better.
Hmm.
The other thing that tends to happen to people like me and you is if we spend too much time trying to perfect, I'll give you an example, cold calling. I think if I were to tell you, okay, tomorrow you're going to cold call, I would imagine you're going to spend the rest of today thinking, okay, who am I going to call? Where am I going to get the numbers? And that's great. We need that. And then you're going to start to think, what's the script? What's the best script? Let
Hmm.
me find people hearing this script. Well, what if they have this objection and that objection? And before you know it, it's going to be tomorrow and it's time to call, and you're only going to be more freaked out than ready.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm only saying this because this is me. And what tends to happen is if we keep postponing for 2 more weeks until we think we know exactly what we're supposed to do, what happens then, Keith, is we make one phone call, get yelled at,
Hmm.
fumble around, sound horrible, and then we want to retract and go, oh man, I'm not doing that again because I thought I was perfect and ready and I got destroyed.
Yeah.
So what happens is when we want to perfect something in advance, the other, detriment is that it could put us in this false sense of being prepared when we're not going to be prepared. It's just not
Yeah.
going to be the case. You're going to have to go out there and, sometimes cold calling, the best thing to do is like have no script. Just like, what's my general idea here? Well, I know they're expired and I know I want to see if they'd be willing to sell their home. So let's have a phone call and see if I can engage in a conversation there. And then
Yeah.
once you start to just get the pace of the call, the ability to like break through, then apply a script because now we're applying a script to an experience
Yeah.
instead of trying to take a script and make that the experience. And that's backwards. That's not reality. So,
Yeah.
a couple things to consider there as you maybe really finalize your business plan. Because I will tell you this, if anyone were to come to me and say, hey, listen, I have very limited time to produce real estate. And if all things were the same, what's the number one activity to get business? I would say that they would be twofold based on what you have here. Number
Hmm.
one, cold calling. It's so efficient, right? Now,
Hmm.
for me, I always have this thing in mind. Do I want more efficiency or more effectiveness? Okay. Because I have more time, I prefer effectiveness. That's why I door knock
Yeah.
because I feel like I'm better in person than over the phone.
Hmm.
So, but I know phone calls are far more efficient, right? I can make
Yeah.
literally 10 phone calls before I can knock 3 houses. All right.
Hmm.
But if someone were to ask me with my limited schedule, what's going to get me business faster? Cold calling. And then on opportunities on a weekend, for example, open houses. I think
Yeah.
those are some of the best ways to get in front of people who are ready to do something sooner rather than later. Now, you may hate cold calling. It may not be in your wheelhouse. Sounds like there's some experience that might actually lend itself to that. But I'm going to ask you to do this, Keith. As you finalize your business plan, think about that. And
Okay.
because you have limited time, I might even say it makes sense to have 4 proactive lead gen strategies and 2 reactive, then a balance.
Okay.
Because we need to be really impactful in the very short time that you have available to you to get you that momentum.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And number one is still number one though, okay? Sphere of influence, right?
Hmm.
Um when I say like even though we have limited time but we're looking for business now, cold calling is going to be it because assuming we're calling the right people, expired for sale by owners, for example, those are people who are kind of raising their hands saying, yeah, I'm not only ready to sell, like I've tried it. I'm
Yeah.
looking for a solution to get the job done. That's
Hmm.
why that is such a highly competitive space. That's okay. All right. Sphere of influence, though, is still going to be really important because when you have limited time, you want to stay engaged with those folks. And one of the things that I want you to think about as you finalize your business plan is what does Q1 look like for your sphere of influence as far as a message? Do you have an idea? What would you want to say if you're calling your sphere of influence in 10 days from now? What's
Hmm.
the message that you're coming with for the first quarter?
I would say the same thing that I tell most people about real estate is to get prepared. I mean, if we're going into, everyone says interest rates should be coming down in an election year, and everyone's predicting it, and then I would telling them to be prepared and get themselves in position to make a move because I know that's definitely what I would like to do next year because I would like to buy a second home next year or an investment home if I can make that happen. But
Awesome.
just really ultimately getting people in position to take advantage of what's going to happen in the market in 2024.
Beautiful. So that's spot on in my opinion. Last week the Feds had their press meeting, their press
Mhm.
conference, and in that press conference they've essentially signaled that they do want to have 3 rate cuts in 2024.
Yeah.
and that they want to bring the Fed funds rate down 0.75%. So quarter drops each time.
Hmm.
It's not a promise, but it is a pretty healthy idea of that coming to fruition. Okay.
Yeah.
Here's my messaging around it. Hey, Keith, um, I don't know if I as a homeowner or just assuming who you are. Hey,
Hmm.
listen, you know, be it that I am a real estate professional and I really want to keep all of my friends and family up to date on what's going on. I think there's some really important things that are going to happen in the next year that I just want you to be aware of. So that way, if it can be an opportunity for you, I want you to take advantage of it. So, as you know, interest rates are high, right? I'm trying to talk to layman terms. Interest rates
Yeah.
are high. And when rates are high, there's a lot of buyers who are just out of the market now, right? Because they're going to wait until rates drop. Well, the Feds just let us know that in 2024, the expectation is that rates are going to start to come down. And what that
Yeah.
likely means is we're going to see not only buyers rushing back to the market, but a lot more volume because a lot of sellers have been waiting for rates to drop to make their moves. So, what does that mean for 2024? A very robust, a very active real estate market, and likely some price increasing in 2024. So, if you're thinking about selling in the next year or so, that could be very advantageous for you. If you're
Hmm.
thinking about selling and buying, that could be a little bit of a challenge for you. Yeah, you're going to make more money, you're going to turn around and spend more money and
Yeah.
have more competition, right? So, my message to people is this: if you're only going to sell, wait a little bit because you're going to sell. And then if it's like an investment property or, you know, you already bought your other home, whatever it is, if you're just going to sell, yeah, wait a little bit because you should see a nice little price bump. If you're going to
Yeah.
buy, let's get out there and buy right now. Don't wait
Yeah.
for rates to come down because, man, then we're going to be out there with everybody else. And then we're going to be out there with people who have their 50 and 100 grand to throw at a property that
Hmm.
either you can't compete with or don't want to compete with. And if you're going to buy and sell, right now is this more kind of, what's the right way to say it? Right now is this more flat line of real estate where it's an easier process to sell and buy your home than if prices are doing this or doing this. Prices right now tend to be a little bit more evened out. This is the
Hmm.
easiest time to sell and buy at the same time. So that's the kind of conversation that I would share with somebody. And I would just call them and say, hey, Keith, it's Joseph. Hey, listen, man, I'm calling you because I want to give you a little bit of a real estate market forecast for 2024. And this is whether or not you have any interest in doing anything. I just want to keep you up to date.
Yeah.
Then I would have the conversation. Okay. And then I would wrap it with Keith, if you hear anyone talking about real estate or you know anyone who's thinking about buying, selling, or just has questions, my ask is that you get me involved in that conversation. You know, my purpose is to simply help somebody. So even if it's just to answer questions and they have no interest or willingness to buy real estate or sell it, just get
Hmm.
me involved because I just want to help people. Is that fair? And they'll say, yes, of course. And you go, great. Anyway, Keith, we haven't chatted in a couple months. What's new? And I'm sure you heard this in the program, but the reason why that scripting is so important is because you don't want to call, hey, Keith, how have you been? Haven't talked to you in a while. And you have a great conversation. Then you go, great. Anyway, hey, let me talk to you about real estate and I'm asking you for referrals. People
Hmm.
could hang up that call and go, God, Joe just wanted referrals. Did he
Yeah.
even care about what we talked about? And that's not real. I know that that's not real for you. You do
Hmm.
care, but you don't want them to walk away with that possible perception of the conversation. So
Yeah.
it's a little hard at first to call and not get there because it's so natural for us to go, "Hey Keith, it's Joseph. Hey, how's it going?" And then before you know it, you're in that conversation. Okay? So when
Hmm.
you make those initial calls, it's got to be, "Hey Keith, it's Joseph. Hey, listen, this is what I'm calling for." All right? So hey, listen, I'm calling you because there's a really interesting forecast for real estate in 2024 and I want to make sure I share this with everyone that I know so they might be able to take advantage of it and get there.
Yeah.
So give them the information, ask for the referral, then just have a normal chat with them. Okay.
and get that out of the way first.
Absolutely. And remember, you having real estate conversations with people in your limited time is the most important thing that you can do right now. Okay.
Mhm.
So I think your business plan is pretty solid, but I'm going to push you a little bit and maybe try something that you didn't have in mind. And that's going to
Yeah,
be maybe going after some of that business now. FISBO expireds.
yeah, no, I appreciate that because those are obviously things that I didn't really think about, and that's why I came to you, because I knew you would see things that I didn't.
Well, I appreciate that, man. And, I didn't know that you had maybe some willingness to do that. I've been in customer service. I worked for Bank of America over the phone before I came to real estate.
Yeah,
I was pretty used to incoming calls all day on a headset, right? People upset because we're dealing with their money.
yeah,
Um, at the same time, I was very service oriented. Cold calling still wasn't my thing, oddly enough. That's okay. I think one of the things that I recognized from the bank is that although I had the skills over the phone, I much preferred that face to face engagement. And I knew that I got further with people when I was in front of them. So that worked for me. And I think it works for you too. But if you have that ability to do cold calling, it's only going to make your career better, stronger, faster. All right. So I would say run with that and let's see what we can do with that in the next 6 to 9 months.
okay.
Other thoughts, questions, anything else about your business plan?
No, no, not really. I think you've cleared up a lot, a lot of that for me, and got me going in a little more of a path that I think makes a lot more sense for me and my personal situation that I have going on.
Yeah, and I think our focus for 2024, like your mantra, should be make smart and final unaffordable. And what that simply means is we have a robust real estate business to the point where you can't afford to show up for work anymore because you're losing too much money on real estate,
Yeah,
and let's just get after it and grind that way. One other thought, as far as like your pillars go, really look at, because I know now that you're kind of reanalyzing number six, but really look at A, B, and C underneath all of them and really
hmm,
think through like we did today. What is that message going to be? Because you want to have confidence and just energy around it. It doesn't have to be the best message. Quite
yeah,
honestly, Keith, your message could suck. But if in
hmm,
your mind your message is great, it's going to be great to whoever's hearing it.
yeah,
I know that you are someone who is going to make sure that it's a proper message in terms of accuracy and it's the right information. So I don't worry about that. But just remember, energetically, if you're showing up and you're enthusiastic about what you're saying organically and not faking it, the
yeah,
people receiving it are going to go, wow, this must be really great because he's pumped about it. And that's good. So look at, the three items that I have on there. What's the source? So if we do go after cold calling, where are we going to get this information from? I'm going to
hmm,
let you figure that out a little bit because there's a lot of goodness in I wouldn't say struggling, but going through the process of figuring out how you're going to reach them. Okay.
yeah,
The second one is the message, and the third is the frequency. Frequency for you in this case is actually going to be really easy because there's not a
hmm,
lot of it. But
yeah,
just make sure when you have those opportunities to not work at Smart and Final and do real estate, that you're
hmm,
showing up and really focused on who am I going to have real estate conversations with right now.
yeah.
Yep. Cool. Anything else I can help you with today?
No, I don't think so. I think you said to make the start the transition with the mentor program. I just have to email them, right? I wouldn't have to
Yep.
reach out to my current mentor,
Nope.
or
You
no?
just email the program. They'll start that process for you in the whole 9 yards. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And then if you have any challenges or struggles there, let me know, of course. And then when you do have some time, I think right now you have access to the program. Do what you want there by all means. I would much rather, because I know who you are, if you have 20 minutes today, call somebody and test
Hmm.
your messaging.
Yeah.
I know that sounds crazy and it's a brain scramble, that's why I want you to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can easily make that happen. I don't work until 2 o'clock today.
Perfect. Perfect. And don't feel like you have to put in, 4 hours until you do, but make some
Yeah.
phone calls and just penetrate through the I'm not perfect yet. Good. And you're still going to do it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, man. And let me know how it goes if you don't mind. Shoot me a text or a message or something, man. Like, let me know how that goes, but make a couple of calls and test out your messaging on people and let's see what's going to happen from there. Don't be surprised if you might hear of someone saying, "Hey, I have a buddy who's thinking about buying. He should hear this." That's
Yeah.
exactly what you're looking. Cool.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, man. Thanks for taking the time this morning. Let me know if there's anything else you need help with. Otherwise, we'll talk soon.